Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Roseville Business Council. I'm John Connolly, president of the Twin Cities North Chamber of Commerce. And greetings to everyone. Glad you could join us this morning. And I want to pass the microphone off to my comrade here, Yao Yang.
Thank you so much. As he said, my name is Yao Ya. I'm with St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Public Affairs Associate, and I would also like to welcome everyone here too. And to kick off our meeting is Bill Wagner from Highway Private Credit Union.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. It's my second meeting, and we're very pleased to be sponsoring this year. So real briefly, Highway Credit Union, full-service financial institution, been around over 80 years, a little over $1 billion in assets, about 240 employees, and 70,000 members wandering around the state, the country, and the world. So I haven't been able to say this lately, but we are the, well, I've been able to say it, but really didn't want to. We're the official credit union of the Minnesota Wild, and so they're on a win streak, so that's good, right? Okay, usually get a quick cheer from that. One of the things that we're most proud of right now, though, is that it's our second year of running Highway Hockey Kids for Kids, which is an initiative we put together to bring the art, the skill, the knowledge, the awareness of giving and service to kids. And we're very pleased that the teams that signed up this year raised over $30,000 for Gillette Children's, and that was $20,000 more than last year. So we're very pleased about that. If you're into hockey, have kids into hockey, look into that and learn a little bit more about Highway. So without any further ado, we'd like to introduce Julie Wern from the Roseville Visitors Association to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Bill, and that's great about the fundraising. I mean, that's awesome, and everyone likes hockey in Minnesota. Good morning. My name is Julie Wern, and I'm with the Roseville Visitors Association. And I'll just give a quick plug for our big Hygge weekend that we have coming up this Saturday, March 2nd. Mcguire Agency is helping us sponsor it, but a great day of family fun in the snow. And thank goodness we have snow, which we are very happy about. It's a big day today as our speaker, Mayor Dan Rowe, is giving the annual State of the City address. Mayor Rowe enters his second term as Roseville's mayor, serving since January of 2011, and that would be his third term. A mechanical engineer who works for Dynamic Air, Mayor Rowe was a member of the City Council from 2007 to 2010. He also served on the Planning Commission, Twin Lakes Stakeholder Panel, HRA Rental Housing Study Group, Parks and Recreation Master Plan Citizen Advisory Team, and Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. A Roseville resident since 1990, Mayor Rowe possesses a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Michigan. Please help me welcome Mayor Dan Rowe. Mayor?
Thank you, Julie, and I was a little disappointed at the lack of cheering for the University of Michigan, but maybe I'm in the wrong audience for that. Want to thank you all for being here this morning, especially on a snowy and cold morning in Minnesota, but I guess that's the norm nowadays, snowy and cold. So I wanted to start by saying that I was thinking about how to approach the state of the city maybe in a new way this year, and I was going to suggest that my address could be simply just, well, check social media. That's the state of the city. Look at nextdoor.com or Twitter or Facebook, but then I thought, well, maybe we need to round it out a little bit or perhaps have a more balanced approach. And then on the way over here, I was thinking, well, maybe the state of the city is just really snowy and slippery, but maybe we need to say more than that as well. So once again, thank you for being here to hear a little bit about what is going on in the city of Roseville. I wanted to start by saying, reflecting on 2018 and looking forward to 2019, I think we can continue to report that the state of things in Roseville is generally very good, with some known challenges and some opportunities that we need to address. Roseville continues to be, as the Roseville Visitors Association says, perfectly positioned for success. We are located generally in the state of Minnesota, which continues to have a stronger economy by many measures than the nation as a whole. But we're also in the city, or in the Twin Cities metro area, which is a strong and vibrant area as well. Our location both fuels our strength as well as provides us with many challenges. We're tremendously fortunate in Roseville to have highly engaged residents, service providers, and business people who give every day of themselves to make their neighborhoods better, their schools better, and our community as a whole better. In the City Hall, we are blessed to have, in many senses, ride on the coattails of those people in the community who are helping make us successful. And I know how blessed we also are at City Hall to have a tremendous group of dedicated and highly professional city employees, as well as engaged and thoughtful city council members sitting alongside me on the city council. And I see we have Councilmember Wayne Groff here this morning, and I didn't see any other council members. So Wayne is representing the rest of the group. Thank you for being here. It's within that framework, then, that the city works to assure the success of our community through all the things that we as a city. Those aspirations are that we in Roseville aspire to be a community that is welcoming, inclusive, and respectful, safe and law-abiding, economically prosperous with a stable and broad tax base, secure in our diverse and quality housing and neighborhoods, environmentally responsible with well-maintained natural assets, physically and mentally active and healthy, well-connected through transportation and technology infrastructure, and engaged in our community's success as citizens, neighbors, volunteers, leaders, and business people. So we in Roseville aspire to be welcoming, inclusive, and respectful. As I previewed last year, a key City Council priority in 2018 was labeled Inclusive Community and Governance. And one of the primary focuses in that area in 2018 was staff participation in the GARE program, or Government Alliance for Racial Equity. GARE is a partnership of the League of Minnesota Cities and two national organizations called Race Forward and the Haas Institute for Fair and Inclusive Society, and it is part of a nationwide effort of folks in local government to do what we can do to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all. 14 Roseville City staff, representing most of the departments and most of the pay grades, have participated in the GARE program over the last year. The major next step in the GARE process for the city is to develop and implement a racial equity strategic action plan for the city in order to outline specific goals and actions to address inequities related to how the city does its business. In Roseville, we also aspire to be safe and law-abiding. A number of initiatives in the area of public safety were instituted in 2018, designed to increase safety but also openness and transparency. First among those was implementation of the 2017 decision to equip all officers in the police department with body-worn cameras. In addition, early in 2018, the police department released the first local data results from the Ramsey County Traffic Stop Data Collection Initiative and held an Imagine Roseville community meeting to present the data and encourage dialogue about it. The 2018 data will be released shortly on traffic stops in Roseville and Ramsey County. Through a partnership with the Roseville Police Foundation and other community partners, a three-prong effort on addressing human trafficking was undertaken in Roseville. It focused on education of local hotel and motel staff and management, increased and focused enforcement on trafficking laws, and getting victims, importantly, into rescue and recovery systems. In fact, this past January, the last month, was Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and we had a proclamation of that in Roseville. And the city and other local groups provided informational and educational forums and other efforts to help bring awareness and help combat this tragic criminal activity. With some well-publicized incidents of residential property crimes in 2018, like burglaries, thefts, and others of that sort, we in the community refocused our attention on efforts to prevent and prosecute crime in the city. As a result, the city will be continuing discussions through 2019 about the numbers and types of police staffing that we have in Roseville going forward, as well as the costs and how to pay for that. Key concerns relating to these discussions are general increases in crime, as well as decreases in case closure rates, increased demands on the time of officers and detectives related to training, prioritizing proactive efforts, and properly processing, investigating, and successfully prosecuting cases. Two initiatives are already underway in 2019 that relate, at least in some respects, to police staffing. One is the partnership among suburban Ramsey County Police Departments and Northeast Youth and Family Services to provide mental health-related case management follow-up in Roseville, Mounds View, New Brighton, White Bear Lake, and North St. Paul. This is an effort to reduce the number of repeat mental health-related police calls in these communities, which can free up officers to spend more time focused on other calls and duties. A second initiative just recently supported by the City Council is the Commitment to Diversity hiring program in the police department. This program allows temporary increases of up to 2 officers beyond the authorized budgeted force strength in the department in order to hire community service officers, cadets, or reserves who qualify as minorities in law enforcement. This initiative is intended to help our police force become more reflective of our community and hopefully prevent the loss of these quality individuals to hiring at other departments outside of Roseville before we have vacancies in the city. In the area of fire and emergency medical safety, in 2018, the Ramsey County Ramsey County Fire Departments, including Roseville's Fire Department, received recognition for their innovative Closest Unit Dispatch program. This de-emphasizes jurisdictional boundaries in the dispatch of fire and emergency medical units in Ramsey County. This initiative is having an impact in response times as well as service to our communities. Like in the police department, the Roseville Fire Department is continuing its discussion with the community and the City Council about appropriate staffing levels as the transition from a part-time to a full-time force is nearing its full implementation. Key factors in the fire department discussion include the ability to staff for 3 relatively concurrent fire incident if it happens, and like in police work, the increased demands on the time of firefighters in terms of training, inspections, emergency management planning, and those sorts of things. Besides staffing, Roseville is dependent on volunteers to remain safe as well. And an encouraging new part of that effort involves Roseville becoming a heart-safe city in 2019. Being a heart-safe city involves increased training in CPR in the public, as well as placement of more and knowledge of more electronic defibrillators in local businesses and institutions around the community. In fact, just recently, the Ramsey County and the fire departments implemented what's known as the Pulse Point app, which connects those who know CPR with nearby cardiac incidents that are happening in order to more quickly get people the life-saving efforts of CPR from members of the community. We encourage everyone to learn CPR and to become a possible lifesaver. In Roseville, we aspire to be economically prosperous. 2018 was certainly a busy year, seeing the completion of the extensive remodel at Rosedale, as well as the opening of the new Von Mauer department store, which along with our Portillo's and Revolution Hall are all welcome commitments to and private investments in the ongoing success of Roseville as a regional retail center. More exciting news about Rosedale may be coming soon in 2019, so we'll want to stay tuned for that. I don't want to say too much more than that at this time, but stay tuned. Beyond retail, however, Roseville continues to see business growth other than retail as well. You may know in this area, Calyx completed and opened its new corporate headquarters off of Mount Ridge Road, and they've already made several announcements about new innovations, new products, and business growth of that organization. We also have longtime Roseville business Mcguire, which is progressing with its plans for its own new corporate headquarters in Roseville, which will consolidate some employees from their White Bear Lake office as well. And Calder Company is continuing its efforts to finalize acquisition of the former Dorso site just down the road and across the street for its own consolidation of its operations in the Twin Cities and a headquarters. In addition to that, we've also had a number of new state-of-the-art warehousing spaces open up in Western Roseville last year. And just to put some numbers on this sort of anecdotal information, the city issued more than 4,100 building permits in 2018, which is about an 8% increase over 2017. These permits included 18 new single-family homes, 7 new commercial buildings, over 1,300 residential remodels, and over 180 commercial renovations. On the commercial side of things, the permit valuation between 2017 and 2018 increased about 23%, from around $70 million to around $87 million. And of that, about a third was new construction, with the rest being reinvestment in existing buildings. A major focus of the city in 2019, in conjunction with our partners in Maplewood, St. Paul, and Ramsey County, is to begin the implementation of the new and completed now Rice and Larpenteur Vision Plan. This will include efforts to foster economic redevelopment of the area at Rice and Larpenteur, and will be heavily involved with people from the community and businesses and residents participating in the leadership of those efforts. And I've already been very heartened to hear from a couple of local business people who want to participate in that effort, and encourage people who want to be a part of that to contact the city to see how they can do that. In Roseville, we aspire to be secure in our diverse housing and neighborhoods. Part of the city's ongoing efforts related to housing and neighborhoods is the multifamily rental licensing program. This has been going on for a few years now in Roseville. And just recently, the fire department took over the inspections under that program, which has freed up community development inspectors to focus on other efforts in terms of building inspections and improvement of our neighborhoods, including the city's neighborhood enhancement program, which is a proactive commercial and residential code education and enforcement effort that now will be able to cover all the businesses and residences in the city in the course of 2 years, rather than what it had been doing, which is taking 3 years to cover the whole city. That will help us better stay on top of emerging issues in terms of code enforcement in our neighborhoods and make sure that our neighborhoods continue to be vital and in good shape. Those two ongoing programs, as I said, help to ensure that our housing and our neighborhoods are healthy and maintained and continue to provide safe housing of all types and at all price points for all people in the community. To be sure that we continue to understand the changing marketplace for housing in Roseville, the Roseville Economic Development Authority, or EDA, authorized and received an update to our housing market study in this area from Maxfield Research in 2018. That update indicated demand in the next 10 or so years for nearly 550 units of multifamily rental housing, including over 200 affordable units at various levels of affordability in the community. Beyond that, there is significant demand for denser ownership type housing such as townhomes or those types of homes, and that's at over 200 units in the next 10 years. And as you may have noticed, in Roseville we have a lot of senior housing. We continue to have a lot of senior construction projects going on, and the study confirms that that continues to be a high demand area. Over the next approximately 5 years, there's going to be demand for senior housing in various types of between 700 and 800 units in Roseville. And this can most visibly be seen, as I said, by a lot of the projects that are going on in Roseville, including just across from City Hall, we have a new project of market rate senior housing that is complement to the Applewood and Cherrywood housing that was already developed around that site. Toward the market rate and affordable family needs for rental housing in Roseville, we are in the process of seeing the development of the Edison project at County Road D and Old Highway 8 in western Roseville. This is a project of both affordable and market rate rental housing. It's the first rental housing new construction in Roseville in something like 30 years. And so we're really looking forward to that project going forward. They've got a couple of other phases that are not yet started because they're waiting for some environmental cleanup funding, and we hope to have that in place shortly as well. In addition to that, there is an opportunity for multifamily housing in some of the improvements that are being anticipated in the Rosedale area as well, if not at Rosedale itself. In Roseville, we aspire to be environmentally responsible with well-maintained natural assets. And of course, the big news for the city in 2018 and going on into 2019 in the area of environmental responsibility is the installation of solar panels on City Hall, the fire station, and the Public Works building on the city campus. Those panels are already going in. We had some delays because of the weather recently, but hope to get back up to speed and finishing that installation. And this program allows the city to recoup the cost of the panels through utility savings, which significantly reduces the city's dependence on the power grid for our electrical use. And in addition to installing solar panels as a physical installation at the city also is investing in off-site community solar gardens, which are paid for by energy credits. And these two projects demonstrate the city's commitment to alternative energy going forward. That commitment is part of the city's participation in what's known as the Green Step Cities program, which is a program of best practices for environmentally responsible operations in communities across the state. We're currently a Step 2 city out of the 5 steps that are available, and we're striving in 2019 to become a Step 3 city. There's a few steps, so to speak, that we have to finish to do that. And our goal is within 2 years to become a Step 5 city, which is currently the highest step, unless another city pushes to 6, and then we'll have a new goal to shoot for. And I know Maplewood is pushing hard for getting to a Step 6 or even beyond. So we've got some competition out there. The City Council, as part of this process, designated our Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission as the sort of the steering group for our environmental efforts in the city. And we also received assistance from a few University of Minnesota students as a capstone project they did a couple of years ago. This all helps inform our decision-making in the area of environmental responsibility. In Roseville, we aspire to be physically and mentally active and healthy. And as in past years, Roseville continues to benefit from the efforts of community-driven health initiatives such as the Roseville Alzheimer's and Dementia Group and the Roseville Community Health Awareness Team, or CHAT. These are not city programs, but city staff provides insight and support, which includes a web presence on the city's website. Both programs provide educational offerings on relevant subject matter, primarily for our aging population, but also for others in the community and certainly for caregivers. In 2018, at the instigation of CHAT, the city helped fund a pilot of a weekly local circulator bus with the New Tracks company. This is an effort to provide some alternative transportation in the city to fill some needs and gaps there for either seniors or folks with lower incomes to get around the city. It's a one-day a week program on Tuesdays, and it does a loop around the city. And that pilot program ended at the end of 2018, and there were some signs that it was, doing some things well and had other challenges in other areas. So the city actually authorized a new 6-month pilot for 2019 with a slightly altered route. Where we actually now include stops in the southeast corner of Roseville at Rice and Larpenteur, where we've got some folks that are transportation challenged, and also some stops at grocery stores off Rice Street that help connect people with some of their needs. That pilot is underway, and one of the keys to success of that circulator program in other communities, which we hope to replicate here, is local sponsorship by business community. And so we would certainly encourage folks to consider helping to support that effort through sponsorship of that circulator bus. I should say also that as part of being healthy in Roseville, it was a pleasure for me to participate in a couple of community volunteer efforts at our 2 newest city parks. We did a planting event at Midland Gardens Park, which is at County Road B and Cleveland Avenue. And we also did a playground build in conjunction with Grace Church volunteers at Unity Park on Marion Street, just north of Larpenteur in Roseville. The pleasure was all the greater because of the tremendous turnout of volunteers in those efforts. It was really impressive to see the number of people in the community who hadn't been involved maybe in other activities who were showing up to help plant trees and plants at the park as well as with the playground build. And it was especially nice to see because, of course, the planting event happened on one of the hottest days of the summer and the playground build occurred on one of the abnormally cool days of the fall, so we had challenges to face in that effort. These 2 parks will be a locally significant addition to their areas in the community in terms of health and well-being. One important focus going into 2019 and 2020 related to health and activity in Roseville, but also in the wider region, is to pursue state bonding funds for the Guidant John Rose Minnesota Oval. The Oval was built in the 1990s as a partnership between the city and the state right from the beginning. And has always been an ongoing partnership between the city and the state to provide that key recreational asset in the community. We look forward in 2019 to renewing that partnership through the bonding and being able to make sure that the Oval provides a benefit to both Roseville people as well as our region for years to come. In Roseville, we aspire to be well connected. In 2018, the city completed several small but important links in our pathway and sidewalk system And this included links between multifamily housing and nearby bus stops. This was an important priority, especially on the City Council, to make sure that we were connecting residents with the transportation opportunities that were available in the community, which connects them to jobs and economic vitality through that connection in the transportation system. And then more broadly related to pathways and sidewalks in the community, we also had our Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission work with the City Council to complete and adopt our updated pathway master plan. This will be able to guide future additions and improvements to the city's pathway system. 2019 is probably going to be kind of a year of road work in Roseville in terms of our connections and transportation system. This will provide opportunities to improve the system, but also certainly some challenges. And I should say, I'm just making sure I'm following my script here, because I'm starting to ad lib. Isn't it? It's scary when that happens. At least it is for me. So we've got some improvements that we're looking at doing along the Snelling Avenue corridor as a city, and those will be at Lydia and Snelling and at County Road C2 in Snelling. We're going to make some improvements to those intersections, which will help the flow of both vehicles and pedestrians and eliminate some of the stacking at those intersections, especially during the peak hours, which will reduce wait times but also increase the safety for everybody that's using those intersections and hopefully make everything move more smoothly in the Snelling Avenue corridor. Then there's the thing that I thought I was going to be talking about, but is probably one of the big significant projects in this area, which is the improvement on 35W that's programmed to begin this year. They're doing a managed lane project through MnDOT, and that will go between Highway 36 in Roseville all the way up to Blaine. And it's a multi-year project, so it's not just 2019. And it's definitely going to provide or produce some inconveniences for everybody. I think we all acknowledge that. But ultimately, the goal of these managed lane projects, and I think we've seen that at least in the last couple that have been done in our area, is that it improves the traffic flow through the corridor ultimately after the project is completed, because it eliminates some bottlenecks and provides additional lane capacity. One of the things that's notable about that project is that MnDOT worked ahead of the project to identify the likely alternate routes that people would be taking when there's backups during the construction on 35. And they've provided some temporary improvements to intersections outside, but in the corridor, but off of 35, which are hoping to minimize some of the impacts that might occur as people get off the 35 corridor and into some of the side streets. So we'll be following that closely because it's a relatively new development in MnDOT projects to do that. And so we want to see how well that works, and certainly we're hoping that we can see a lot of success for our commuters as well as residents in Roseville and businesses. And now at the same time that project is going on, the county is also doing a project in this area, which is the resurfacing of County Road C west of Highway 35W. And this is, of course, a major route for commerce in Roseville. So we'll be working closely with the county as well as partners like the Twin Cities North Chamber to keep businesses informed about what's going on in the project and what alternate routes might be able to be used or when things are going to be disrupted. Finally, Roseville aspires to be engaged in our community's success. And probably nowhere in an assessment of the state of the city does the work of people besides city staff and officials show up more prominently than in the area of engagement. I already mentioned the chat group, community health awareness teams, and in addition we've got numerous other school groups, faith groups, and service organizations, and all types of volunteer groups that are undertaking all sorts of efforts to make this community better each day. One group that it's important to mention here is the Friends of Roseville Parks. The Friends of Roseville Parks has been providing funding and volunteer in the park area for 50 years in Roseville. And I just was at an event on Friday night as they celebrated 50 years. They've contributed $500,000 in that 50 years to improvements to the Roseville Park system. And so we're congratulating the Four Parks folks on that anniversary and thanking them for all of the work that they do to make a great park system even better for our residents and visitors. In the area of engagement also, the city, through our Human Rights Inclusion and Engagement Commission, is continuing to work to understand how people connect or don't connect with local decision-making and city government activities. This will focus on perhaps new and different methods to engage people because of the different means of communication or the different organization of groups such as new immigrants in the community. And it's, we need to understand how people connect with each other and how people can connect then with the city, and making sure that everybody is participating in the decision making that we do, which affects all of our lives in the community. And we're not just committed to doing better in that area. I think we're also committed to looking at improving and learning from what we attempt and try as we go forward and engage our community. And I should point out a couple of examples. We just recently had a discussion about winter parking rules in Roseville and whether we want to change street parking requirements or ban street parking during snow or just in the winter or whatever it might be. And obviously, one of the key groups that's affected by that is apartment dwellers who, just by the nature of apartments, oftentimes have to use street parking for themselves, if not their guests. And so what we did is we proactively went out and we used door hangers throughout some of the apartment buildings to let people know this discussion was coming up, to ask for input and suggestions as to a number of different alternatives that we offered. And we did get quite a bit of input that we probably would not have gotten without that additional effort to engage people who might not otherwise engage in that decision-making process. We also used the door hangers for getting input in the planning process of the Unity Park down in southeast Roseville. Once again, got a lot of input from people that we might not have otherwise gotten. So we are continuing to look at those types of methods to reach out to people and connect people with the decision-making that we do, and we want to make sure we're always learning from those efforts and improving as we go forward. So I want to conclude by saying that no city, and certainly no first-ring suburb, is immune from the ongoing and new challenges that arise from our circumstances as a first-ring suburb. I'm confident that Roseville City government, but also importantly Roseville residents, businesses, and community organizations are committed to looking out for those challenges and looking to each other and working together in order to address them. Beyond being in a good state now, those commitments that we have to looking out for those challenges and working together to address them will make sure that we are continue to be in a good state as a city, whatever we face and whatever we are doing together going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rowe. Appreciate your time, appreciate all the energy and enthusiasm that you bring to the city of Roseville. We have some time for question and answer, and I'm going to hand the microphone off to Yao. And please raise your hand, I'll point, and we'll get some question and answer here. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes here of time. So with that.
Anyone have questions?
It's never a surprise when Mary Jo has a question.
Never a surprise. Thank you, Mayor Rowe. My name is Mary Jo Mcguire, Ramsey County Commissioner, and I was going to wait for a few other questions, but I'll just start out by thanking you, the City of Roseville, all of your amazing staff for all of the cooperation and coordination that you do with the county. I know throughout your presentation you mentioned so many areas that we do partner with, and I know it's in the area of our public works, our roads, our public health, our safety, and our parks, roads, and libraries. There's so many ways that we do partner with the cities. In fact, we can't do our work alone. I know you can't do your work alone. And so with all of the economic development, with our sustainable environmental issues, and also with our affordable housing. So I'm trying to figure out what question I want to ask you. With all of that, partnership, which one do I want to ask? And I'll just ask a basic one that you know I've been wondering about, and I get asked this a lot, and we see this in our businesses, is with our organics recycling. And so we are now meeting as Rotary at the Cedar Home Golf Course, and I know we're talking about doing some organics recycling, and we're looking for a site in Roseville, and just wondering how that's coming along, because Ramsey County, for everyone's benefit, will put up a bins, and we'll bring bins in. We have Biz Recycling has funding available to put those recycling bins and organics recycling, and we'd like a site in Roseville to put those bins so people can have 24/7 organics drop off, and we will manage that. So I'm just curious how that's going. I know you're looking into that. Just wondering if there's a site yet and how that's coming.
I think we've identified the site at the I'm trying to think of what we call it, at the Nature Center just up the road from there. The Leaf Recycling Center, right, exactly. So that's, I think, where we're looking to have a site, and I think we're just finalizing some of those discussions. So thank you for that softball question, other than the fact that I couldn't remember what our leaf recycling center is called. But that's what happens when you start to turn, when you turn 50 and it just, everything is just falling apart. When I printed out the speech to read this morning, because I'm so vain that I don't want to wear my cheaters, I realized that this year, or I should say each year over the last several years, I've had to print it in larger and larger type. So for any of you following at home, I'm up to 30-point type now. And I just, to feed back to the county a little bit, one of the things that I mentioned in the remarks was the Rice-Larpenteur initiative, and it is a four-way partnership. It's Roseville, it's St. Paul, it's Maplewood, and it's Ramsey County. And we've had a lot of good participation from Ramsey County, but I think what we're looking for as the city partners is that sort of next level of commitment from the county, both at the county elected leadership and staff level, where we've got folks at the table who can really bring the decision-making of the county to that process. So certainly we want to encourage the county to continue to be connected with that and to be a partner with the cities, because it is really a four-way partnership. And there's so much that is in that area, and certainly in infrastructure, that is a county asset that has to be, the county has to be at the table. Other questions? This happened last year. I covered things so well that there just weren't any questions. Or else you were just all so confused that...
Hello, Mayor. My name is Matt Sundin with the Mcguire Agency. My question is, the school district's making a major investment in a lot of their buildings, and are there things that the city is doing in collaboration with that, whether it's gym space, maybe something over at the Fairview site that the building's going to be redone over there, that you can talk at all about?
I think in terms of that, we've had some conversations with the district. I don't know that there's too much that we're doing necessarily in partnership on facilities specifically. We certainly have the gym partnerships that we've already had, and we certainly work with our recreation department with the school district in terms of use of various athletic facilities around the city, but there's no, I don't think, specific efforts underway. One of the things with the change at Fairview is that we're actually going to lose some storage space that the city has been renting from the school district, so the city is making other arrangements there, but other than that, there's not really specific efforts. I think what we are trying to do as a city is certainly help with building permits and other approvals through their process to make sure that we're not holding up their efforts. Uh-oh.
I would be remiss.
And Mary Jo is not my plant in the audience with a good question.
This one may not be so soft, but just to talk about a little bit about affordable housing. We just had a workshop at the county about the partnerships that we need to really provide that kind of housing for people. And of course, we know that affordability is a range of amounts. And so if you could just talk a little bit more, I know you did mention it in your presentation, but how you're working on zoning for affordability. We can provide support and some help in infrastructure, but how we can partner with affordability and housing.
Well, it's a good question, it's a question that's really, I think, on the mind of the community as a whole. And I think, in terms of zoning for affordability, really what the Met Council talks about when we think about zoning for affordability is density. And part of that is because when you're building for affordable housing, generally speaking, you try to keep, obviously, your cost as low as you can. And one way to keep costs down is to have a lot of density on a site. And so certainly one of the things that's a requirement of the Met Council for cities to look at when we update our comprehensive plans, which we just completed this last year, is ways that we can incorporate more density into our community to make sure that we are providing the opportunity for development to occur that can include affordable components. One of the things that we've done as a city, and this actually goes back a couple of years, is we added a category into our residential zoning districts that allows for more density, smaller lots, which can help with affordability, but can also help with even different types of, as I talked about, throughout the spectrum of types of housing and price points, can help with people who might be looking for maybe a detached single-family type house, but they don't necessarily want a large yard to maintain, but they want, to have that sense of a detached house. So we've got actually along Dale Street, just north of County Road C, there's a few homes that are going in that were in that pattern, although those homes are maybe a little bigger than we were envisioning when we put that in place. But I think it allows the flexibility for development to happen of different types. Certainly we've got the ability to consider when a project comes in that's looking at perhaps adding or having a lot of density in a smaller portion of a parcel, but maybe doing that in exchange for some green space elsewhere on the parcel or some other amenities that help promote, the healthiness of the community, or water treatment or whatever it might be, that we can look at those projects. And certainly the key, I think, for affordability from the government perspective is to provide, ease of doing those projects as well as lower costs and assistance. And certainly there's a lot of assistance available through the federal government, through the state and county, as well as other sources. But it's kind of a package of funding that goes into these types of projects. And so what we want to do is make sure as a city that we've got the policies in place that can help promote that. And actually there was just an article you may have seen about Bloomington just passed a fairly progressive ordinance about inclusion of affordable housing in their new developments across the city of Bloomington. And so I've actually already just sent an email, I think late last night, to staff to take a look at that and see if we can get an update as a city council on what some of those policies and initiatives are and whether those can be applied in this community as well.
My name is Brad Johnson. I'm a business owner in the Roseville, and I see that you talk about affordability, bringing in new housing. Mm-hmm. Could you and maybe Mary Jo specifically also address what we're doing for keeping property taxes down, keeping it affordable for the existing people in town? Mm-hmm. Because ever increasing property taxes puts pressure on businesses and jobs.
I appreciate that question, and it's certainly not a new question to government entities, because we, the way we fund our activities is through levying a tax, and in the case of county and city governments and school districts, it's a property tax, which is based obviously on the value of the property. So certainly what we're always focusing on at the city is ways we can keep our costs down. We've got a lot of great partnerships, and in fact in our IT area, we have over 20, it's probably closer to 30 or more entities that the City of Roseville staffing is providing IT services for across this area, this region really. And it's providing a level of service to all of those entities that could not be provided individually, certainly at anywhere near the cost that we're able to share across all those entities. So that's one thing we do, is we try to partner, we try to use economies of scale. One of the discussions I think that's going to be part of our public safety staffing discussion is, there's going to be costs associated with additional officers. Do we look at offsetting some of those costs elsewhere in the city's activities? How do we not necessarily just automatically make it a tax increase for the businesses and residents of the community? We also always look at our operations in terms of use of utilities, energy. We try to purchase large amounts of fuel for our fleet rather than sort of individual smaller purchases, because we can get those economies of scale. So we're looking at all those types of things, and that's always part of what we do as our decision making as a local government. We recognize that costs do tend to continue to increase, and it's increasing for businesses, it's increasing for residents, and it's increasing for governmental entities. And so we have to continue to look at new ways to be creative in how we look at how we do our business.
And this will be the last question.
No pressure.
Hi, my name is Catherine Hahn. I'm a hospitality consultant, and I just wondered if you could speak to, this is more than obviously a 2019 issue, but more broadly the rise in minimum wage and what Roseville specifically is doing to support local businesses.
So one of the efforts that Roseville is doing to support local businesses is these business council meetings and our partnership with the two chambers to put these on. We want to make sure we're making connections between businesses, among businesses, as well as between the business community and local government. And so that's one of the things we're doing. We do a lot of, through our business retention and expansion program, we do a lot of business visits as city staff and elected leadership to make sure we're making connections in the community, finding out what are the issues, what are the emerging needs. We've seen a lot of discussion about workforce. We've seen a lot of discussion about just generally, finding folks that are, have the proper education to do the jobs that are in demand in this area. And so we're then turning that back and saying, hey, school district, are there things we can do to partner or make connections with the school district to help with that and other things. So those are some of the things we're doing to help the business community. The city of Roseville has not undertaken a consideration of any kind of local city ordinances related to minimum wage or paid leave and things like that. And I think it may or may not be because we have certain views as a city council about those issues, but I think more likely because, you know, while we think we're the biggest and best, we're, you know, still a fairly small piece of the overall, you know, business community in the Twin Cities. And I don't know, you know, if we started passing things along those lines, you know, that were only related to our own businesses, what that would do to, you know, this small area. And so I think we've tried to look at a more broad perspective. And we know there are efforts underway at the state and at other levels to consider some of those things. And so it makes more sense, I think, for our business community to have those decisions made at those higher levels rather than at the local level necessarily.
Well, thank you, Mayor Rowe and the Roseville team. Another round of applause. I appreciate it. And Yao?
And also I'd love to thank our hosts, Builders Association of Twin Cities, and also our support of the series of the sponsors, Highway Credit Union, and also Rosa Visitors Association. A round of applause for them. Thank you.
Just a couple of last notes. There's more material about Roseville and the Twin Cities North Chamber and the St. Paul Area Chamber out on the desk as you depart. There is events going on all the time, so we always urge you to check their websites. And next month, we're going to have our presentation in, once again, the fourth Wednesday of the month, and it's going to be with Nora Slowick, and she is the current leader of the Met Council. So we're going to get an overview of what's going on with the Met Council within this area. And now, Yao, any parting?
Register, look out for our emails, and we'll see you next month, okay?
March 27th, mark your calendar.
Yes, mark your calendars. Thank you, everyone.